Am I crazy, or should a twice Harvard-educated nominee, federal judge, nominee for the Supreme Court, who is a woman, be able to define what a woman is?
I can't say if you're crazy. That would be for a mental health professional.
For my doctor.
You're either dishonest or ignorant, and we can maybe figure out which.
In today's video, David Pakman absolutely destroys Michael Knowles in a heated debate on what a woman is. Michael tries to corner Pakman with the same tired "what is a woman" gotcha question that conservatives have been tossing around for years. But instead of falling for the trap, Pakman does what he always does best: cuts through the nonsense and brings it back to the facts. That is a perfect example of substance versus spin, and Pakman absolutely holds his ground. So let's dive in and watch how David Pakman shuts down Michael Knowles in the heated debate.
So here's the deal. I mean, I'm kind of, we're just meeting each other. I'm sort of kidding around, but here's the deal. There are no instances where, when issues come before the Supreme Court, it comes down to the dictionary definition of a word. When it comes to who counts as a woman, or what is discrimination, or what is negligence, it's always in very narrow circumstances where dictionary definitions do almost nothing for you. So she was very smart not to play into these kind of rhetorical black holes, because whatever definition she gives Michael, she then is going to be pushed into some corner with some case or article or book she hasn't read, by the way, and there's no upside to it. So if we're just having a good faith conversation about strategy, she did the right thing. Almost 60% of Americans believe she's qualified, and she is. And that's really all there is to it. It's kind of boring.
Well, I agree with her. I don't agree with you that it's boring. I think it's one of the most interesting questions in the country, that we're now at a point where we can no longer even define man or woman. But I do agree with you on strategy. She's in a very tough spot because her side of the aisle, and she's relatively leftist, even by the standards of the Democratic Party. So on her side of the aisle, there is a new definition of woman. Well, they haven't given the definition of woman, but it's not the old definition of woman, which is a person who's not a man. That is out because of the transgender movement. And so she knows that if she gives this new definition, which is a woman is, I don't know, a woman is someone who says that he or she is a woman, that's going to alienate, I think, the vast majority of Americans. If she gives the old definition that a woman is a female human being, and a female is of or denoting the sex that can bear children and reproduce and produce eggs, for instance, she knows that that will alienate her base, and she knows that that now is apparently controversial in the law after the Bostock decision, after other transgender decisions. So I understand the strategy, but what about the law? What about the definition? You say she shouldn't be quoting the dictionary. Well, fine. Shouldn't she at least be able to give the legal definition of a woman? Shouldn't she, a woman, have some sense of what that is? I'm not a meteorologist. I can tell you if it's raining.
Yeah, there is no legal definition of a woman, and that's exactly the point. The point here is, when it comes to the court is in a position, or will be in a position, or might be in a position, to decide for the purposes of a particular set of facts based on a claim brought by someone who appeals a case about these issues. And so it's literally irrelevant to her job as a Supreme Court justice. And so, again, we can have a cultural discussion outside of the context of the Supreme Court. In the Senate's job in evaluating, is she qualified? It's an irrelevant question. And by her qualifications, she's more qualified than any of the 9 justices currently on the court. There's no way to deny that.
Now, Knowles' whole angle was that Ketanji Brown Jackson should have had some dictionary-style definition ready for what is a woman, as if that's a simple or even necessary thing in a Supreme Court hearing. But Pakman, like always, kept it grounded. He pointed out rightfully that the court doesn't deal in sweeping culture dictionary definitions. It deals in narrow legal questions. And guess what? There is no universal legal definition of woman that applies across all cases. It's all case specific. Also, let's just add some context here. 60% of Americans believed Jackson was qualified, and she had more judicial experience than any sitting justice at that time of her nomination. So the line of questioning wasn't just pointless, it was strategic political theater. And Pakman nailed the point about why she didn't take the bait, because it was a bait question. Any definition she gave would have been twisted into some viral talking point. So yeah, strategically smart and totally irrelevant to her qualifications.
I think you can, because I think all of the 9 justices on the court can tell you what a woman is. And so I know we're getting back.
Because they've never been asked to do that. No, nobody's ever been asked to define words in this way during hearings. So you could speculate that, but they've never been asked. So
they've never been asked.
Impossible
I agree,
to say that.
I've never, but I, as a gambling man, I would bet the farm that Justice Alito could tell you what a woman is. But you're right; they've never been asked because it's never been controversial before. But I want to get to a point you just made. You said there's no legal definition of a woman, but there must be, because there are legal protections specifically for women. So if we don't know what a woman is,
then Title III thing,
and Title IX, and Title IX is quite controversial.
Have a good faith conversation, or one that's in some way productive, you know.
You're saying you and I, or you're saying Ketanji Jackson?
You and I, yeah. I don't know if, I mean, listen, the Republican senators obviously didn't want to have a good faith conversation. I was talking about you and I, Michael.
Yes, well, I do want to, I mean, this is why I'm granting you you're making the point on political strategy. I totally grant you that. That was the right move for her to make if she wants to avoid
relevance.
But then bring up Title IX. I mean, there are legal protections for women. This is coming before the court. It's come before the court in the last term. There are going to be a lot more cases coming before the court coming up. It seems extraordinarily relevant that we know what this woman thinks of these issues and of a basic question of biology and human nature. What is a woman? I mean, I don't think that's a bad faith question for the senators or for me to ask.
No, it's not necessarily bad faith, but we have to be able to, what I hope are reasonable people, Michael, understand that in the context of her role as a Supreme Court justice, it doesn't come down to a biological opinion. Like, can you at least grant that piece? Well, it's true that for what the Supreme Court decides, these are narrow issues where when it comes to Obamacare's constitutionality, which Amy Coney Barrett never, refused to weigh in on, with all of these things, these are really narrow legal decisions, and there is no way in which a dictionary definition of terms does anything for it.
Alright, Knowles tries to corner Pakman by demanding a dictionary definition as if Supreme Court cases are decided by Merriam-Webster, but Pakman keeps it grounded, pointing out what really matters for a Supreme Court justice, the legal implications, not biological trivia. Supreme Court decisions aren't made by someone opening a dictionary and picking the definition they like best. Pakman also drops a key fact here. Just because a term like woman is used in legal protections like Title IX doesn't mean the law has to define it in rigid biological terms. Legal definitions evolve with case law and interpretation. That's literally what judges do. They weigh nuanced, often new legal questions, especially around gender identity and civil rights, in context. He's either ignoring how the legal system works or playing culture war games. Pakman, on the other hand, brings the focus back to reality, qualifications, precedent, and how justices actually make decisions.
Well, it might do something, but I grant your point a little bit, except that Marcia Blackburn didn't ask for the biological definition or the dictionary definition. That's what Ketanji Jackson added. She said, I'm not a biologist. But all Marcia Blackburn asked was, just tell me what a woman is from a legal perspective, a constitutional perspective, a philosophical, I mean, whatever. That's
literally not what Marcia Blackburn said. I would encourage you to pull the clip and identify the time at which she said that.
She said she didn't mention biology and she didn't mention the dictionary. She said, what's the
But you just asserted that she said she wanted the legal and philosophical. She never said that.
No, I didn't say that. I said I just said Marcia Blackburn asked for the definition, any sort of definition that Ketanji Jackson could give of woman. She didn't specify biology.
Now you're backtracking.
I'm not backtracking at all.
That's dishonest now.
I'm not back. How am I backtracking?
No. Hold on a second. Let's be clear. 30 seconds ago, you said Marcia Blackburn didn't ask for the biological. She asked for the legal.
No, I didn't.
Let me finish the sentence.
Okay, but you're misrepresenting what I said.
No, I'm not. I would encourage the audience to rewind.
I would encourage that. I would encourage that as well. But
first, but can I even get it out?
Sure.
I mean, it's okay. The problem with what you just did, Michael, is you just said Blackburn asked for the legal definition, and I said no, she didn't, and you said no, that's true. She actually just asked for the definition.
I'm sorry. Well, then if either you misheard or it seemed that I misspoke, I'll be very clear. Marcia Blackburn just said, what's the definition of a woman? She didn't specify anything else. Now, you then said that biology has no place here, or that the dictionary definition has no place, but that's not what Marcia Blackburn asked for. She just asked a simple question.
Understand that in these Supreme Court hearings, the senators can ask the questions however they want, and the nominees can answer them however they want.
Or not answer them.
My opinion is, this is my opinion, and you can have a different one, and that's the great thing about America, Michael. My opinion is that if you're interviewing for the job of Supreme Court justice, it's reasonable to assume the questions have a legal bearing as to your role on the court. Given that, Judge Jackson was right to understand the point of the question is to back her into a rhetorical corner about legal definitions. And she was right to say, it's not something I can answer. These are narrow issues when they come before the court, and there's no reason that she would ask such a question. Do you know this guy, Jesse Lee Peterson? Have you heard of him?
I know Jesse Lee Peterson,
When I was on with Jesse, he said to me, David, define what love is and what a man is. And it's a really common rhetorical technique for the bad faith right to start with just pick a word and define it and use it to back someone into a rhetorical corner. It's a waste of time, Michael. Let's talk about real issues, please.
Okay. Well, I think that as a philosophical issue, but certainly as a legal issue too, the definition of a woman does matter, has mattered recently, and will matter soon. But I at least agree with you on the strategy. You have not convinced me of Judge Jackson's good faith confirmation hearing, but you have convinced me that she is a wise politician and that she is playing her hand the best that she can.
Now, Knowles tried to claim that Senator Marcia Blackburn was asking for a legal or philosophical definition, which Pakman quickly debunked by pointing out that Blackburn never specified that. She just asked a vague, open-ended, define a woman question, clearly fishing for a viral clip. And let's be real, that kind of question isn't about getting a meaningful answer, it's about manufacturing outrage. Pakman rightly brings up how this tactic, demanding a hard definition for a broad, complex idea, is a common move in bad faith debate. We've seen it before from guys like Jesse Lee Peterson and others who use define X as a way to trap people in semantic corners rather than engage on substance. And the broader point Pakman makes is key. Supreme Court nominees are expected to answer questions that are legally relevant to the case they may see. What is a woman isn't some abstract thought exercise for a philosophy class. It's a loaded question used to discredit Jackson's credibility and pander to a culture war narrative. Jackson did exactly what any smart, thoughtful nominee should do: refuse to step into a bad faith bear trap and instead focus on the actual responsibilities of a justice. Oh, and here's a fact for the context. In actual legal terms, the definition of woman varies by statute and case. Courts don't pull from dictionaries. They interpret based on the law, which is why there's no single correct answer in a Supreme Court hearing. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story, so you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.